Okay, so now we are going to review very quickly how to do the sleeve cuffs, because these construction is a little bit interesting in order to achieve the reversible aspect of the design. So the sleeve cuff, I want you to position it just as you cut it on the pattern piece. So this is the positioning of it. I have the direction of greatest stretch here, as indicated on the pattern piece. So I'm going to do these one at a time. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to fold it over in this direction. So in the direction of greatest stretch, you're going to fold over that way. And then you're going to take the raw edges at the bottom and you're going to fold it up so that all four edges, raw edges, meet on the top and along the side. Now from here, what you're going to do is you're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down this side. And by constructing your sleeve cuffs this way, it's going to allow you to sew it so that the seam doesn't shift. It's an easier way to construct the sleeve cuffs. Let me sew this quickly. So that is what that looks like. Let me go ahead and do the same thing to this other cuff. So fold it in the direction of greatest stretch, then fold it up in the direction of the grain line, line up all the raw edges and sew this shorter side. Okay, so now for here, I'm going to secure these serged threads that I have. Obviously, if you're using a standard sewing machine, you won't need to secure your threads. Just make sure that you backstitch and front stitch to secure them. I'm only going to secure the edge here that's along the raw edge side, because the other one won't matter because it'll be concealed and it won't unravel. So let's snip that. So now we have it look like this. Now from here, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to flip this top one around to the back so that I can seal this seam. And now I have this beautiful cuff. You see here where the seam is completely enclosed and it doesn't shift. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab just the top layer and I'm going to flip it around to the back, and that is going to completely enclose your cuff seam, okay? So now this is where this cuff construction gets fun. So I'm going to set that aside. So for your main and your lining fabric, what you are going to do is you are going to first sew the shoulder seams. You're going to then sew the sleeves on, and then you're going to sew the side seams. And you're going to do that on both the main fabric and the lining fabric. And then you're going to insert, this is my lining fabric, this light pink, and this is my main fabric, these unicorns. So now I'm going to insert with wrong sides together my lining fabric inside my main fabric. I'm just going to line that up, line it up here. And insert this sleeve to the other side and get it all set. Line up my side seams. Okay. So now we have the basic lined bomber jacket right here, okay? Okay, so now from here, I have this line, the loosely lined bomber. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the main fabric and the lining fabric on my first sleeve, and I am going to pull the sleeves out and separate them right here, okay? making sure not to twist the sleeve so that my side seams don't get confusing. Okay, so with my main fabric, I'm now going to take my cuff and I'm going to insert it into my main fabric so that right sides are together. I'm going to line up the raw edges and I'm going to pin this in place. Okay. So now this next part can get a little tricky, so I want you to follow me, okay? So from here, for the lining fabric, I'm going to flip the edge out, okay, so that the right side is exposed. And I'm going to take this right side and I'm going to turn it so that I can line up the raw edge with my cuff, so that my cuff and now this lining fabric on the inside are right sides together. Let me reposition this pin. And actually I'm going to flip this seam so that I have less bulk right there. Okay, and then I'm going to pin that in place. Now, what we're going to do here, once you have that side seam pinned, it's a lot easier. And so you can just go around this cuff and you can place some additional pins in place so that it doesn't shift. If you're a wizard, you don't need to add all these extra pins, but it never can hurt. Okay. Because remember, you're stretching the cuff to fit. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, okay? Or I'm going to use my serger, but you can certainly use your sewing machine with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and just make sure to go slow. You can stop if you need to readjust. Pin slipped off, so let me just take my time, reline up those raw edges. We go. Okay, so now, I got a little twisty. So now that's what it looks like, okay? I'm going, sorry for the sniffling, I have a little bit of a cold. So I'm going to remove my pins, make sure they're removed, and now I am going to take this sleeve and I am going to reinsert it now to turn it right side out, and you'll notice that there's my sleeve cuff, okay? And my sleeve cuff is fully concealed. So if I turn it inside out, it's concealed within the lining fabric. Now, before you go any further, make sure that you don't have any gaps, you didn't miss kind of sewing one of the areas accidentally, because it is easy to fix that if you did for some reason not catch some of your fabric. So now we're going to turn this back right side out so that the main fabric is again on the outside. So there's our sleeve cuff. Now we're going to repeat it with the other side, and I'm going to show you again because I do think that this step can be a bit tricky. Okay, so we are going to open this up. We're going to grab our main fabric sleeve, the edge. I'm going to make sure to not twist my lining sleeve because I want to make sure that the side seam doesn't get twisted, because it can get twisted and then your final sleeve will get twisted and you won't be able to put your arm in it. So main fabric turned inside out, insert my sleeve cuff so that all the raw edges are lined up so the right sides are together. And I'm going to pin this in place. Okay, so there we go. Now for this sleeve, I'm going to flip the outside so that the right side is out, and I'm going to turn this and I'm going to insert this into the very center on the other side, on the inside part of my sleeve cuff. And I'm going to line up the side seam there on my sleeve, okay? So I have the sleeve cuff sandwiched in between the main fabric and the lining fabric. I'm going to repin that in place. I stop poking myself, okay? And I'm going to continue around the rest of the sleeve cuff and the sleeve opening and pin it in place. And again, you're gonna have to stretch the sleeve cuff in the center to fit the wrist opening, the sleeve opening. Not complicated, but it takes your brain to think for a minute, and that's why I decided to do a video on this, because it was much easier to explain it while demonstrating it than it was in any photographs or illustrations. Let me make sure this other side of the sleeve cuff is high enough. Okay, one more pin. And now take this and sew these raw edges. So now I'm going to take out my pins here, and I'm going to look. It looks like I caught all of the main and lining fabric just fine. So now I am going to, I can actually just stick my hand into the main fabric and grab the cuff and pull it out. You can see my cuff seam got shifted a little slightly. I didn't pin it very well, but that's all right. Not worth going back and redoing. And so I'm also analyzing the seam on the inside to make sure I didn't miss any areas of the cuff, and it looks perfect. So now, let me just fix this a little bit better. You have your bomber jacket now with your sleeve cuffs attached. And sleeve cuffs are such an important part of the bomber jacket. And next we are going to move on to the bottom bands.